without a sense of comedy, without a sense of humor, I would not know how we can go through life. Sometimes you meet people with without a sense of humor, and that's very interesting.
Yeah, thanks.
We have
Maybe
one more
question.
question.
Take the last question.
So I'm not sure this is a question, but when I was 17, that was 32 years ago, I wrote you a fan letter after I read La Malda. And 3 years later, I was reading Vigilante, and I'm reading and suddenly see the title of a chapter. It's titled Mevrouw Meerschwam, which is my name, and it's a very, very unusual name. And so for 28 years, I had this idea that my name, the only time that my name ever got published has been in association with being a old, smelly, cleaning lady. So I've been living in New York for about 25 years, and I knew that you were living here, and I always had this fantasy that I would see you writing in a cafe somewhere, and I would go up to you, and I proposed that Mevrouw Meerschwam had a granddaughter who's about my age, and who is perhaps more attractive and successful and talented. And I was just curious whether something like that could be in the works.
This is quite a good list. Let me begin to say that I think I have a good memory. I cannot remember your fan now. Did you write it? You were at that time living in the Netherlands.
And the reason that I wrote it is because I grew up in the same community as you, and I frequented some of the same places, so I could relate to the book. And so I guess then my question is, where did the name Meerschwam come from?
So, okay. To tell you a bit, how does an author come up with names? One of the sources for me are always the obituaries in newspapers. So I take one last name, one first name, I like the names. But with the name Meerschwam, indeed, I remember using the name. I think that my mother, who has passed away 10 years ago, that my mother spoke about a certain Miss Meerschwam sometimes. That must not, I think it cannot have been you, but maybe your mother or your family members, maybe they have known my mother. I don't know. And of course, this is the conscious level. There is an unconscious level, and I'm enough of a Freudian to take the unconscious level quite seriously. Maybe on an unconscious level, your letter, which I've forgotten completely, made such a big impression on me that I want to turn your name, but why I have used this name for an old, smelly, elderly, smelly lady is still a miracle to me, because we never met. So it cannot be based on our meeting still now. This is something I've never been to a psychoanalyst, but this is something I have like to discuss. One more thing, because I'm not usually. I mean, sometimes I have to work on a train or in a plane. But usually, I prefer, if I go to a cafe, not to be there with my laptop. Sometimes I go there to sit to read, but usually I have. It's not my habit. I like to work. I work in my kitchen. I live on 37. I work in my kitchen, and that's where I like to write. So I think it's very unlikely that you could have met me in a cafe writing, but you could have met. But then again, it didn't happen. So I'm so glad you came here to tell me where this is.